If you look at Abraham, you see, for example, very clearly, Abraham has a son named Ishmael from Hagar, and Ishmael is very poorly behaved. So who cares? Ishmael is poorly behaved. Well, he's so poorly behaved that it leads to a dispute between Abraham and Sarah. What's the nature of the dispute? Sarah says to Abraham, this child is a contaminating influence. He is a negative influence on Yitzchak. And it comes to the point that she can no longer tolerate his presence, and she says, "Garesh ha'ama hazot ve'et benah, ki lo yirash ben ha'ama hazot im benim Yitzchak." Please evacuate, evict from the house this maidservant and her son, because this son of this maidservant is not going to inherit along with my son, with Yitzchak. So we're not told too explicitly what it is that Ishmael did that bothered her so much. What we're told very explicitly is that Abraham doesn't agree. This was very evil in his eyes. He couldn't understand how this is possible. First of all, you gave her to me. You're the one who told me I should take your maidservant, and that with God's help we'll have children from her. At least it's something, it's progress. And now you're telling me that you want me to throw her out? A little bit of consistency would go a long way here. You knew how she was. She was your maidservant. She wasn't mine. And this is what you've decided. So, he's my son. Maybe you're behaving this way because I'm his biological father, and because you're not his biological mother. You have this whole concept of jealousy between the two. Sarah actually, even while Hagar was already pregnant, she was making fun of Sarah, and she was saying, "Watera Hagar ki harata, wataqal gibratah be'inaha." Hagar sees that she's pregnant. It came very quickly and very easily, and she laughs. My mistress has been trying for so long, and she hasn't been successful. So she's now she considers herself superior to her, at least in a certain way. So Abraham is in a difficult and complicated situation, and how is the situation handled? It's easy, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu intervened. I don't know what would have happened if Hashem hadn't told Abraham, here's what you should do, but he did, so he saved me the conjecture. Hashem tells Abraham, who right now is suffering and he believes this is evil, Hashem intervenes and says, that does not be evil in your eyes. Hashem appears, sends this prophetic message to Abraham, and he says, let this not be bad or evil in your eyes. Whatever Sarah tells you, you listen to her. So, if I were offering a course in Dispute Resolution 101, the first class would be, whenever there is a dispute, one side is 100% right, one side is 100% wrong. It's that simple. You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree. You just have to do what I tell you. If it were that easy, every couple comes to see me, Rabbi, we're having a dispute. Don't worry. She's right and you're wrong, and everything will be okay. It's okay, you can be wrong for the rest of your life, but if you're not sure, you'll come and you'll ask me and I'll confirm. So if Hashem tells you this is prophecy, it's a little bit hard to argue. Your wife is right and you're wrong. It doesn't sound very promising for those of us who aren't prophets. But nonetheless, Hashem is the one who came down, it sounds, on Abraham's side, right? Little caveat, a little detail to the story. Sarah, what did she want from Abraham when she tells him this cannot be, this child cannot inherit with my son? What did she want him to do? She handed him a knife and said to Shechita, well, send them away. A separate house, a separate tent, maybe some kind of a mechitza, some kind of a partition. Okay, she tells him, I don't want him in such close contact with my son. What did Abraham actually do in response to this prophecy that he receives from Hashem? Which is interesting, because it doesn't sound like he did what Hashem told him to. Not like he did something else. He went above and beyond, like he was looking for extra credit. What does Abraham do in response to this prophecy?
Well, he puts Hagar and Ishmael in a position where, except for a nest, they would die. Like in the desert.
He sends them with a small
bit of water.
canteen of water, and he sends them to Midbar Paran. He says, good luck. Get out. I got the point. You basically need to die. It's just I'm not going to kill you with my own two hands. As far as I'm concerned, you go to the desert, and what happens to people who get lost in the desert will happen to you too. Did Sarah tell him to kill him? That's what she said. Kill him because he's no good. That's the solution. So Midrash points out very poignantly that Sarah never asked for this. All she told him was, I can't raise my son in the presence of this one because he is a negative influence. It's not going to have a happy ending. This whole story, Ishmael is corrupt, and Yitzchak, we have higher hopes for him than this. Avraham doesn't agree with her, and so as far as he's concerned, let them continue to coexist, and ultimately, maybe it'll work itself out. Maybe Ishmael will grow up, maybe Yitzchak won't be influenced, who knows, maybe Yitzchak will influence Ishmael. Hard to say what it was that he was thinking. By the time Abraham gets a prophecy, and he realizes that Hashem tells him, whatever Sarah told you, she's right, he comes to a drastically different conclusion. Well, if that's the case, forget what I thought, forget my plan. I'm going to put in for something much more violent, and something much more conclusive, because apparently my wife knows everything and I don't, or she has, incidentally. You do realize that from here, Chazal proved that the imahot had a higher level of prophecy than the avot, that our matriarchs were on a higher level of prophecy than our patriarchs. Particularly in the specific domain of child rearing, of chinuch. Chazal said, not that she was a better parent, not that she was a more insightful instructor. Chazal said that Sarah had superior prophecy to Abraham. Like, this is only the only place that you actually hear it from Hashem. It was true throughout. It's just that in this one particular instance, Hashem actually flashed the cards and said, okay, Sarah is on a higher level of prophecy than you. A lot of us didn't learn this midrash when we were younger, or we learned it but we kept on going thinking as if the avot were like the real superstars and the imahot were in the tent. This, Chalav said, from here you learn that she had greater nevuah than him. And as a matter of fact, you can prove the same thing from Rivka. We'll talk about her in a second too. Where ultimately, their prophecy was superior to the prophecy of the avot, and it came out in the kids. It came out in the children. In other words, they see through their relationships with their husbands and their children, their connection, their prophetic connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu, proves to be greater. It's very interesting. So Sarah didn't wage any wars, she didn't go to save Lot, she didn't take the three kings against the four, she could have turned the world inside out. For whatever reason, she chose not to. Why? Because she was busy with a higher level of prophecy. So this is what people do when they're on a medium level of prophecy. If you're on a higher level of prophecy, you'd have stayed home and analyzed the kids. I don't know, maybe that's what she was getting at. Chazal prove it from here. They point it out from here. And something very interesting happens where the following generation has the same conflict, except this time it's a little bit different, only because Rivka actually gave birth to Esau. So Ishmael technically was Abraham's Bechor. Technically he was Abraham's firstborn from his, at this point, concubine wife. In the case of Yitzchak and Rivka, they're both biological parents of the same two kids. And Yitzchak's approach to chinuch is a little bit different from Rivka's. And this we're told already at the very beginning. The beginning of Parashat Toledot, Yitzchak and Rivka, they give birth to, Rivka will give her the credit, she gives birth to twins. And we're told, "Vayehav Yitzchak et Esau kitzayid b'fiu, u'Rivka ohevet et Yaakov." So Yitzchak loves Esau because literally tzayid b'fiu, again the pshat, simple pshat pashut, tzayid in Hebrew means hunting or the food that is the result of hunting. In other words, Esau brings him food. He's very adamant about kibud avayim. In fact, he doesn't go and pick fruits and vegetables. He goes and he brings deer. He manages to tackle animals. He manages to bring home. So he takes a risk. He's physically involved. He's industrious. He goes out. He does what needs to be done in order to bring home meat in order to honor his father. And we're told that Rivka likes Yaakov. A couple of quick grammatical details. Number one, Vayehav Yitzchak et Esau. The word, the verbs that begin with a waw in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, they imply what?
Future.
Vayehav. It sounds, the construction is a future construction. And we've heard of this as waw hahipuch in Hebrew, where although it implies future, we know by way of tradition that it means past. So if it were Vayehav, it's and Yitzchak will love. Vayehav, and we understand it's the past. We understand that although it sounds like the future, the waw with a patah implies that it happened in the past, but it's a biblical way of doing it. Nowhere else outside of the Tanakh do you find anyone referring like sometimes you find this in the Gemara or in the language of the Mefarshim, where there's using the Torah's language, but nobody uses it outside of the Torah. So basically, it's a way of saying that Yitzchak loved Esau. In Hebrew, there's a little bit of grammatical ambiguity, in the sense that we don't know. For example, there's no distinction between what you would call past perfect and the past imperfect, or the continuous, as you call it in English, right? So this could have been passé simple, it could have been imparfait. We don't know. So either he loved him or he was loving him. It's hard to say based on the way Hebrew verbs are conjugated. That appears in the past. One way or the other, it was a continuous action, or it was a kind of momentary or instantaneous thing. And then we're told about Rivka. Rivka ohevet et Yaakov. Ohevet means what?
It's present.
It means she liked, or she likes.
She likes.
Right? She likes now in the present. So Rivka ohevet Yaakov, she likes him now. Okay, I have children of my own. We go through our ups and downs. I love them all equally. Obviously, they're all great. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to love them than in others. Why is Yitzchak's love for Esau described as being in the past? And why is Rivka's love for Yaakov described as happening in the present? When I was in kindergarten, we didn't read these details, right? Because we ate Play-Doh. Who paid attention to these, or paste? So we were told, Yitzchak likes Esau, Rivka likes Yaakov, so Yitzchak buys him toys and Rivka makes clothes for Yaakov. You had these cute little drawings that you brought home. What does that mean, that Yitzchak likes him in the past, and Rivka likes him in the present? Okay, question number one. Question number two, why does Yitzchak like Esau? Vayehav Yitzchak et Esau. Why? Kitzayid v'fiu. So the simple pshat understanding is because he brings him meat, he puts meat in his mouth, like he honors him, and he goes to great lengths in order to make sure that his father has tasty and precious food to eat. He could have brought him bread, but no, he went and he got him meat. That's a lot more work. Why does Rivka like Yaakov?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say. She likes him now, and it doesn't say why. So Yitzchak liked Esau, at least it happened in the past, and there's a reason given. So what happens if Esau stops bringing him food? I'm asking a heretical question, right? So Chazal explained very interestingly, Kitzayid b'fiu, not that Yitzchak was so obsessed with meat that whoever brings it to him is the one that he loves the most. Kitzayid b'fiu, yes, there was an aspect of this, but Chazal said that Esau hayatzalat habriyot b'fiu. He was very good at trapping people with his mouth, meaning he was very two-faced, right? He was European. That's the English word for this. He was European. So he pretends one way and he behaves another way, and he says one thing and he means another. He's very slick with his words. He's very tricky. So he manages to tell stories. He manages to deflect criticisms. He manages to, promote himself in such a way that he comes across as a very successful, a very lovely child. It could be, so on the pshat level, his kibud avayim and the things that he would physically bring Yitzchak. On the, remez level, that he's very slick with his tongue. But it could be that were it not for the one or the other or both, that Yitzchak would not have loved him. It could be that he loved him, or maybe he loved him until he discovers that these things were untrue. Because we're told later on, when Yaakov has to leave, after having stolen the baracha, Chazal said that Esau, all the kavod that he had for his father, becomes this murderous wish. Right? He says, "Yiqravu yemei evel abi va'aqum al achi va'hargehu." The days of my father's mourning should come soon, and then I'll get up, I'll rise up, I'll kill my brother, and settle the score. I'll have my revenge. So it's not like he's saying, "Tov, I'll wait until my father passes away." What he's saying is, my father should die soon. He gave him the bracha; it's his fault. And then after he dies, I'm going to kill my brother too. So maybe Yitzchak comes to a point later on in his life where he realizes that he's been trapped, so to speak. He's been bribed, if you will, with Esau's disingenuous personality. So he fell into the trap, so to speak. And Rivka, she loves Yaakov. Why? Right? The pasuk screams. Please explain me. Why are we given a reason by Yitzchak and not given a reason by Rivka? Okay, I'll ask you a dirtier question.
No, there is no reason to like your son.
Do you actually need a reason as a justification? Like, I like this child. Why? Because he helps me and he collects the mail. This one takes out the garbage. This one, she does nothing. I don't like her. I'm going to put her on eBay after Shabbat. What's the logic? What's the rationale? I have to think of a reason to love my own child. You know, some of them are cute, some of them aren't. So I want a refund, like I want my money back. What does that mean? This is your son. Why should you not love him? Why do you need a reason to love your son? Why should there be some kind of compulsion to love one son over another?
Does it say that Rivka doesn't like Esau? Or is
No,
it that
it doesn't say that Yitzchak doesn't like Yaakov.
She prefers Yaakov? Or?
The word isn't even prefers. The word is loves. And Yitzchak loved Esau. It wasn't like a neutrality. It wasn't, he loved him. He loved him. However that's manifest, he loves him. But it appears in the past, and it's qualified with a certain reason, which, so, it's there because it's there.
And also, we say that one love, like Esau, Yitzchak loves Esau and Rebekah loves Yaakov. But isn't it weird that they don't love the other child?
So we're not told they don't like the other child.
Right, but I mean...
Nowhere does it say that Rivka hates her, for example, and this is already maybe yes, according to the Kuzori, this is progress. Because what happened by Ishmael was that there was he describes this, I'll explain this a little bit later, he describes this as a necessary rejection. There's something about Ishmael that's so repugnant, it needs to be rejected. There was something in Ishmael that needed to be removed from Am Yisrael and quite possibly from the rest of humanity.
Do we explain why? What? Or
Yes. There's a few different aspects to it. We'll get to them, God's help, if we have the time. When it comes to, so he describes this process as progress because the refinement gets finer with time. Mm-hmm. Because by Ishmael, he's not shayach at all to the Jewish nation. It was never even a question that he was part of the Jewish nation. And so when Sarah tells Abraham, he's not going to inherit with my son, with Yitzchak, what she's telling him is, prophetically, he has no portion, he has no shayachut, he has no relationship to anything remotely connected to Kedusha. Therefore, he can't possibly be a part of the nation that is going to be our son Yitzchak. When it comes to Esau, there is the distinction is harder to make. The distinction is harder to make. There's a part of Am Yisrael that condones some of his behavior, or some of his qualities. There's a part of Am Yisrael that rejects them. I have Yitzchak on the one side, and I have Rivka on the other. This would have been a draw. It would have been a tie, were it not for the fact that, once again, Chazal tell us whose prophecy is superior to whose. No, Rivka is a better prophetess than Yitzchak is a prophet. How does that explain anything? So, Rivka, well, let me put it to you this way. What did Yaakov do when he was younger? If Esau was active, he was the hunter, he was the skinner, he was the butcher, he was a cook, he was a chef, he was very talented. What did Yaakov do all this time? What do we know about him?
Yeah.
Studying Torah all day?
He studied, which is great, but how much did he accomplish outside of Beit HaMidrash? So how much did Yaakov accomplish outside of Beit HaMidrash? So learning is an accomplishment. Learning is a tremendous thing. It's abstract though. It's abstract. So I have a son who has an attraction to abstract concepts. But this one, he's practical. This one, he gets things done. He's a mover and a shaker, as we say. He's a macher, as they say in Yiddish, in German. So Yitzchak likes Esau. Why? And now I'm going to turn the question back on you. He likes Esau. Why? What do you mean? Because Esau gets things done. He's the one who moves. He's like, I don't like Yaakov. If you ask me which son has more potential, it's the one who's actualizing it, the one who's realizing it. Esau has potential and he realizes it. He has the strength, he has the coordination, the capacity to get things done, and he does them. And I'm happy I have at least one son who moves, who gets things done. This one, he likes to learn. which is great. I love it. It's fantastic. He wants to be a prophet just like me and just like his mother. But Am Yisrael needs people who move too. We also need people who move. We also need people who get things done. What's Yaakov doing right now? If maybe we can allow a certain degree of justification for it. I mean, if I had to prefer one child over the other, it's a very funny post recently about two very annoying celebrities who don't deserve anyone's attention. Basically, if this couple were drowning in the sea, and you were the only one there who could help them, what kind of sandwich would you make? Like, no one cares about either one of them, and no one wants to help them, even in their worst hour. It just irritate people. So I love both my kids, but as they had once, Austria was the Australian Qantas Airlines. They're the first ones who decided that when you give these safety procedure descriptions at the beginning of the flight, you should make it funny. People listen to you. If it's boring and technical, no one listens. So they said, look, in the event that the cabin is decompressed, and all of a sudden the air is very thin and it's very hard to breathe, you have to take these masks from over your seat, you put them over your face. If you're traveling with children, they always tell you first you put on your mask, stabilize yourself, and then you can help your kids. I said, if you're traveling with more than one child, well, you have to play favorites. You have to pick the child that you like. All right, it's true, you're going to do it anyway, no? So, it's funny, but it's true. So I have two children. Obviously, I love both of them. But this, when he gets things done, it's easier for me to love him, it's easier for me to express my love for him. What is Yaakov doing to justify Rivka's love? Apparently, very little. In other words, relative to his brother, he's learning, which is great. As far as actual physical accomplishments, not too much. How does this reflect on prophecy?
Well, it means that she's seeing what's going to happen in the next generations. Which
is basically Avidan's way of saying she sees further into the future. So Yitzchak sees Esau for what he is now, and he's basically saying he's got potential. His potential is going to grow along with his degree of activity. And therefore, he's the one, I believe, who's the best suited to continue the prophetic tradition. Because prophets were about, receiving abstract messages, but it's also about getting it done. It's about getting the word out, moving things. And Rivka is not impressed by Esau being a cheater and a liar and deceptive. She's impressed by Yaakov being straight, even if he doesn't get very much done. At least what he gets done is straight. At least what he does is honest. At least he's true to the prophetic tradition. I like this one's potential because Esau has a lot of power, but he's crooked. And he's not going to go as far as Yaakov, who right now isn't exactly exhibiting all of his strength, but it's going to come out in the future. Interestingly enough, this machloket, if you will, plays out very differently too. Because Ishmael, as we said, had much more noticeable defects than Esau. Ishmael is not a very good diplomat. Tell me you haven't noticed this about the Arabs in world politics, right? When was the last time you met or heard an Arab diplomat that impressed you? That said anything intelligible at all? How about that guy last week who said the Mossad stole his shoe? And really, this one
is very funny, but except this one is really a big moron. Lately, they've been very good in communication.
I don't think they're necessarily good. They're good at lying.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of it. Who cares? The rest of the world believes it. Yeah. So who cares? You don't have to care, but if the rest of the world believes it and
I care.
You're the only one who knows the truth.
People don't care that this lies.
What does it help you? So being good at crying, being good at complaining. Ishmael, by the way, how many recorded words does he have in the Torah? Just putting this out there. How many psukim were actually authored by Ishmael?
No, zero. We only hear the only time we hear him is
not
crying.
even one. The only thing that he ever does in the Torah is cry, which is telling. Very telling. He cries a few times. We don't hear anything else. He cries when Abraham sends them away and he almost dies, and then Hagar pushes him and says, "I don't want to hear him cry. He's going to die." We don't hear much else. So Esau is not exactly as sophisticated as Ishmael is not as sophisticated as Esau. He's not as good at hiding his iniquity. Right? The Arabs, if they engage in terrorism, they're proud of it. They show the rest of the world, look what we did. They put videos of it on YouTube. And people still don't really come after them. They don't punish them the way they're supposed to be punished. For some reason, even Iran, they're not Arabs technically, but they're Muslims and they're somewhat allied. They have anti-Semitism in common. But they build nuclear reactors. No, really, it's not today. They came out with this whole thing. We're not interested in finding out what nuclear capabilities they've already developed. Just going forward, they should share information. Hello? What planet do you live on? Who came up with these talking points? So Yishmael has much more noticeable defects, and he's not as good at hiding them. How does the machloket play out? Because the grind here is a little bit more coarse, because the concepts at hand in question are a little bit less abstract. Sarah is very clear on one side, Abraham is very clear on the other. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he intervenes on behalf of Sarah and her prophecy, and Abraham does what he understands needs to be done. Right or wrong, that's what he understands needs to be done. And in the end, Hashem sends a malach, sends an angel, tells Hagar, don't worry, Ishmael will also be great. He just won't be part of the Jewish nation. With Yitzchak and Rivka, the argument, the dispute, if you will, is more refined. It's harder to discern because the lies are more sophisticated, because Esau does have potential. He's more intelligent. He's more capable, he understands, but he also understands how to manipulate people and how to manipulate things, and he's good at it. The Europeans are very good at manipulating things. So, this dispute plays out over a longer period of time, right? Yaakov and Esau have to live together, and they spend a lot more time in the same house. They do. And Rivka is much less direct in the way that she addresses this. You'll notice that Sarah, she told Abraham straight out. Rivka never makes such a statement. Garish Hamazaz Benah, throw him out, get him out of the house. I don't want him inheriting with my son, with Yaakov. Throw your own son out of the house is a little bit difficult. To tell someone else to throw his son out of the house, my stepson, is not the same thing. So in the case of Yitzchak and Rivka never tells him directly. In fact, even what she does in a way that's creatively subversive. How does she manage to work this out with Yitzchak? Well, he wants to give the bracha to Esau. I don't want to insult him. I don't want to offend him. I mean, I could just tell him, you're making a terrible mistake. Or why don't you ask Hashem who's right between you and me? That would be a little bit direct. She would have come out on top, but it would have been direct. So she allows him to believe he's giving the bracha to Esau. Really, it goes to Yaakov. And in the end, what does Chazal say about this, by the way? Because it's interesting. Esau all of a sudden shows his true face. And he says, no, I wish my father were dead, and then after he dies, I'm going to go kill my brother. And what does Yitzchak say right after he gives the bracha? Esau comes in, he says, here I am, I did what you asked me, I brought you the food. And Yitzchak says, your brother, he came in a deceptive way, and he took your bracha. And so how does he conclude this pasuk? What a disgusting, repulsive thing to do. How could a son do something so disrespectful and so treacherous to his own father? He concludes the pasuk, Gam baruch yeh. If that's the case, let him be blessed nonetheless. This is what you say to someone who just lied to you. Someone just tricked you, literally tricked you. He lied, he told you he was someone else. He took the bracha. Again, it's almost like he stole it. He practically stole it. Or at least he put himself in a situation where you want to give the bracha to someone, but it's the person you didn't have in mind. And Yitzchak comes to this conclusion very delicately afterwards, and he says, now I understand what happened. Your brother came, he must have dressed up. I wasn't sure, because I thought I heard his voice, but then I thought it was yours. And in the end, I gave him this massive bracha, the biggest bracha of my life. I will never give another bracha like this. He's really like rubbing it in. And he says, Gam baruch yeh. Wow, it's clever. He deserves the bracha. Good for him. But I'm standing here. I'm your firstborn. What do you mean? So Esau obviously is very disappointed by this. Yitzchak comes to this conclusion a little bit later, but he comes to a conclusion on his own. Right? Do we ever find such a thing by Abraham? Where do we find by Abraham that he acknowledges to Sarah, you did the right thing. I thought years ago that Ishmael was had potential, he was going to be a good influence, things were going to work out. And in the end, you were right. We never hear it mentioned again. Not once. He never concedes. He never apologizes. He never just... It was bad in his eyes. Maybe he thought she owed him an apology. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it didn't happen. When it comes to Yitzchak and Rivka, the dispute isn't even direct. She's so subtle. This is what I say. They don't make women like they used to. I mean, first of all, appreciate the depth of her prophecy that she sees in Yaakov. Even before he's very active, he's going to be straight, he's going to be honest. This is the one that Hashem is going to give prophecy to, and not the other one. Even though he's more active, he's still, he twists and he turns, he's a little bit of a snake. She manages to set this whole situation up in such a way that Yitzchak comes to the conclusion, this is the right thing to do, and it happened min hashamayim. It must have been what Hashem wanted, and and he does acknowledge. He does acknowledge in a way that this is what had to happen, and that his wife got him. One of the other proofs, by the way, for the fact that Rivka is on a higher level of prophecy than Yitzchak, is that when the whole story comes up and she explains to Yaakov, here's how I want you to conduct yourself. I want you to get the bracha from your brother. So Yaakov says, but Ulay Musheni Avi. What happens if my father actually feels me out? I'm not as hirsute. I'm not as hairy as my brother. Maybe my father's going to feel me. Vayiti be'ana u'chimtatea. I'll be in his eyes like as if I'm intentionally trying to deceive him. I'll bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. So he says to Rivka, maybe your plan is going to backfire. I know you want me to put on Esau's clothes, but still, what happens if my father feels me? So Rivka's response to him is, Alai qiratacha bini. Right? You're literally, Abi Basik we say in Arabic, like let your bad fall on me. I'm okay with it. Like I'll pay whatever fines or penalties are assessed. And Onkelos translates, Alai itamar bin vuata. It's been told to me prophetically that no curse will come to you. Right? Like I have a prophetic insight. It was told to me by Ruach HaKodesh. I know for a fact you're not going to be cursed. Why? What's the explanation? Yitzchak couldn't curse her or him or both of them anyway. It's you, it's your father. So, prophetically speaking, she knew both her husband and her sons so well that once she sets this up right, and once Yitzchak really puts his entire neshama into this bracha, something's going to open up. Something's going to give. There's no way that he can continue at this highest possible level that he himself can reach, where he's giving a prophetic bracha to his son. At that point, I trust that he's going to be intellectually honest enough to admit, I misjudged the situation. I should have gone about this differently. I don't think I was going to give the bracha to the right son. Baruch Hashem, that my wife outsmarted me and she set this up in such a way that I came out looking good, which is basically what ended up happening. So it's fascinating how these situations differ, both in the nature of the dispute and in the way it plays out, the machloket, if you will, between Abraham and Sarah and then Yitzchak and Rivka. Give me a minute, and I'll go over with you the concept that's explained by the Kuzari. The Kuzari puts it like this. He says, basically, the world was created, the expectation was that people should reach the level of prophecy, people should maximize their potential, and we should withstand the temptations of Olam Hazeh, the physical ones, the non-physical ones, etc. Prophecy precedes the Torah. Prophecy precedes Am Yisrael as a nation. And he says, Chumash Bereshit, the first two parashiot basically describe how prophecy was transmitted, how it was passed on from the creation of the world until Avraham Avinu, until prophecy becomes basically the exclusive domain of the Jews. I've said it before, I'll say it again, even on camera. No other, let's say at least the Christians, they never claimed to have produced a prophet of their own. Even the Christians acknowledge prophets, only Jews. They believe the last one was prophet of all prophets, and that he's higher than Moshe, and that he overturns the entire Torah. In fact, he renders 99% of it obsolete. But they never produced a prophet of their own. They never said, we have someone else that grew up in a Christian school, went to a Jesuit institution, and came out a Navi. So the Kuzari explains that Am Yisrael is what's left, like what's filtered out of the rest of humanity in terms of our ability to preserve, to maintain, and to transmit the prophetic tradition. Even if we're not prophets, we teach Torah, we teach Halakha, we're careful about the Averot, we're careful about observing the mitzvot. This makes us eligible for prophecy. If not us, our children, our grandchildren, someone along the line is going to pick up prophecy again. So he explains that the filtering process by which Am Yisrael is selected out of the worldwide spiritual genetic gene pool, he explains that this process begins with more coarse refinement and ends up on a finer level of filtering, like a much smaller stream. So he explains how Ishmael was never Jewish to begin with, could not have been Jewish if he wanted to, he'd have to convert, but it never even came up, it was never even a question. He was ineligible from the beginning. In fact, It never even came up. It never crossed the mind of Yitzchak to marry one of Ishmael's daughters, even though at the time it wasn't something terribly uncommon. Never even crossed his mind, whereas Esau was perfectly happy marrying Ishmael's, I guess it's his maybe aunt's cousin was removed from Ishmael. In fact, he knows that they are a source of displeasure to his parents. That never bothered him when it comes to marriage, because he didn't make these kinds of calculations for his parents. Didn't make any too many exceptions. But his marrying them was an act of rejection of the Brit. It's an act of rejection of the whole concept of Brit Milah, that once Avraham Avinu and Sarah accepted this concept of Brit Milah, they're members of the covenant, and they need to marry members of the covenant, either by birth or by conversion. So he explains how Avraham was still not 100% perfect. These aspects of Ishmael reside in Avraham and needed to be filtered out before Am Yisrael could be, let's say, completed, before the filtering process could be carried out to the next step. Esau, he explains, his defects are already present in Yitzchak and to a degree in Rivka. It was another necessary deselection, if you will. Like, these genes had to leave them in order for what's left to be on a spiritually higher level. That's the Kuzari. He explains a very Kabbalistic concept. He doesn't describe the Kabbalistic sources, he just explains the logic. And so that's how he says it. He says that these individuals, just like we needed Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, just as they were necessary parts of our spiritual development in terms of the children they had and the houses they formed and the spiritual traditions they passed on, it was as necessary for this process that the inappropriate children should be born from them and removed from Am Yisrael. That's how he explains it. Genetics are what they are in spiritual terms. These genes had to leave Am Yisrael in order for us to make progress, in order for us to grow, which is very interesting. In other words, that's what he describes is what Sarah herself saw. Get rid of this individual who is going to be a contaminating influence on my son. He cannot be a part of this household. There's no way Yitzchak is going to realize his potential when Ishmael is doing what he does. Rivka, it's a little bit more subtle. She does it more subtly. Incidentally, I've already explained to you in the name of Rav Ashkenazi that this also explains why, because Ishmael was an earlier, for lack of a better term, reject from Am Yisrael, there are far fewer neshamot from the pan-Arabic gene pool that end up as a part of Am Yisrael. There are very few converts. Historically, there have always been very few converts from these nations. And because Esau is from a subsequent generation where this filtration has already taken place, and because he was born Jewish and rejected it and left the nation and moved out, there is a lot more in him that still needs to be a part of Am Yisrael, or that could or should have been, which is reflected, as Rav Ashkenazi said, by the much higher number of converts that come from European nations, European descent, because effectively the filtration process wasn't 1,000% complete in that particular generation. The aspects of Esau that were inappropriate overpowered the ones that were. He decided to opt out, but there are nefashot that come back over the course of time, and this is part of the ultimate process. Fascinating, because the Gemara says in Masechet Pesachim, you have a lot of Gemara that sounds. The reason the Jews were exiled from Israel was to collect the Gerim. Like, the purpose of the exile was that we should go tell it to the Syrians, right? I know, don't get me started. It's late, it's humid outside now. But the reason for the exile, the purpose of the exile, Chazal said, was that so the Gerim should be able to connect to Am Yisrael, which sounds like the opposite. If we were in Israel, we wouldn't have so much non-Jewish influence. Going to Chutz La'aretz, so how many converts came back in? How many Jews married out? HaKadosh Baruch Hu was a much better accountant than you or me. He must have his own logic, he must have his own reasons for it. But the idea, as expressed by Rav Ashkenazi, is that this filtration process, the filtration that's happening in our generation is happening with a much finer toothed comb. We're going through the neshamot on a much finer basis, and the determinations that are being made are much more final ones. People are really choosing in or out. Those who are anti-Semitic, or for that matter, those Jews that despise Torah, Judaism, and a few clowns like this still write for the New York Times, some of the Israeli newspapers. So these individuals that claim to be members of the Jewish nation and that yet speak very, very atrociously of Israel as a state, of the Torah and Judaism as a religion, and of individuals who live a life, a traditional life of halachic observance, you see that time is filtering them out of the gene pool. There was actually a very famous case like this recently.
Well, they assimilate. That's pretty basic.
So, right, their appetite for assimilation is greater. In some cases, they go down kicking and screaming, but they go. There was a guy, don't even waste your time on him, just some psycho pseudo-professor in Israel, said some very provocative things about how he didn't think that Russians, Ethiopians, or Sephardim belong in Israel. An Ashkenazi guy, he doesn't represent Ashkenazim. In fact, I don't think too many Ashkenazim like him either. But he was constantly saying these provocative things, pro-Arab, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-everything who wasn't just like him. And in the end, he said something so ridiculous that even the left rejected him. Now, for the left to reject you is astounding. I mean, you can be a genocidal maniac. In fact, the left embraces genocidal maniacs like Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez and this guy Nicolas Maduro. No shortage. China, Mao Zedong. Lots of examples. So, and Iran right now, they're negotiating with them. So the left in Israel rejected this guy for saying things that were so ridiculous that even them, to save whatever little credibility they still have with like the real world, with people, real people, they rejected him. And so what did the guy do? He said, that's it. I'm leaving the state of Israel. I renounce my Israeli citizenship. I think he went to Finland, and then he said that he was going, or Norway, and he said that he was going to become a columnist for Al Jazeera. I saw this and I laughed and I said, but you always were a columnist for Al Jazeera. You just weren't drawing a paycheck from them. I mean, maybe you were a poor negotiator, but now like you're out of the closet. You'll forgive me for the expression. At least it makes more sense that you repatriate yourself to the place from which your neshama for all I know actually
I didn't know he went to
belongs. Yeah. Apparently they want him to have a whole show. But these are the kinds of things. So just to summarize and to really make the point come home. This is the strength of the prophecy of our matriarchs. They didn't get very much real estate in the Torah. Their prophecy wasn't as, let's say, prominently featured. And nonetheless, that Sarah and that Rivka saw this far into the future, that they saw that the attributes of their children, or, in case of Sarah, it was someone else's child. In the case of Rivka, they were both her children. It's even more difficult, more painful to make such a determination. They saw so far into the future that they realized that Am Yisrael could only be possible, it could only exist thanks to the nishmatic qualities that were passed on painstakingly and with great difficulty, physical difficulty and spiritual difficulty, by the tzaddikim and tzaddikot that were very, very careful about their associations, their affiliations, and their spiritual lifestyles. They saw very easily how detrimental effects could destroy the entire process. And they saw so far into the future that their prophecy far surpassed that of their husbands. And nonetheless, they found, polite and diplomatic ways of letting their husbands know that they're right and that the husbands themselves were wrong. But it's a powerful lesson. It just supports the hypothesis that I had for years that whenever there's an argument between a man and a woman, the woman is right, and the argument only persists because the husband is stubborn, not because he's right, because he's stubborn. But it's a topic for a whole other.
Is there the same kind of concept with Rachel and Leah? For them being on a higher level than Yaakov? It's
interesting. Chazal said the imahot are a higher level than the amot. So when we say imahot, generally we mean Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. We don't have much written, much transcribed of the prophecy of Leah or Rachel. In fact, I don't even know that we count Rachel as a prophetess per se. We have a list of 48 prophets and prophetesses. In Masechet Megillah, there's a whole discussion about this. Where do we find that Leah prophesied? I don't recall that either one of them counts as a prophetess. Yaakov for sure. Rivka, we have those examples that I just gave you, and a few others. Maybe she goes looking to understand why she's suffering so much during her pregnancy. She goes to beseech Hashem. So apparently there was an open line of communication there. Good question. I don't know that there's an example in terms of Rachel and Leah. The reality, Yaakov, he got some powerful prophecies himself, but I think at that point the majority of the prophetic work had been done. He went a long prophecy in his own life a long period in his life without prophecy. When he thought Yosef was dead, he gives brachot to his own children, but this is already, with him, Am Yisrael is already complete. None of his children are rejected. None of his children are born non-Jewish or even reject the Torah itself. So it could be that by that generation there was less, prophetic work and less filtration that needed to take place. No question. But I haven't seen. He himself certainly did prophesy. Hashem promised him a number of times. He'll have numerous children. Will come back to Israel. They'll inherit the land, etc. Yeah, no, I haven't seen. A question?
Sure. It surprises me when I hear a lot about what Yaakov did was so bad or deceiving because his mom told him to do it. So it's not so you can't say some outsider told him to do something.
No,
it's different.
For sure. Had he done it of his own, that's the question. If he himself had prophesied this was the right thing to do, I don't know that it would have been as, look, we don't question it. I mean, we see it. We see what happens. We see that his father clearly appears to have been deceived. But she's telling him prophetically, I know this is the case. What she's basically saying is, I know prophetically speaking, your father's wrong. He thinks Esau deserves the bracha. I guarantee you he's wrong. Which is pretty gutsy. It's basically coming out and saying, my prophecy is better than your father's. I've been quiet all these years, but I'm superwoman and just trust me on this. She knows. She knows. The Gemara says, one of the answers to the question, who is the truly wise one? A person who knows his or her place. Expect the rabbi, the greatest posek of the generation, to pretend he doesn't know anything and to ask somebody else. I don't know. There are certain things in life you just kind of understand. So she's telling him, prophetically speaking, I saw that you're not going to be punished for this. I know this bracha is appropriate for you. And she's the one who puts him up to it. And she's the one who presents him now with a conflict. Either you observe, you honor your mother's words or your father's words. You're stuck in the middle. I don't even know how Yaakov would have known himself that if both of his parents, both of whom are prophets, imagine growing up in a house like that. Where's your homework? I did it. Really? Did you? How is he supposed to make a determination between the two of them? How does he know that meaning if his father wants Esau to have the bracha and his mother comes and tells him, no, it's, trust me, my prophecy is better. How does he know? Because he likes his mother better.
My assumption is he's using his own intuition, based on his relationship with Esau.
Well,
maybe it was such a good relationship.
Because I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure they were adversarial beforehand. Yaakov already took and then you see that Esau complains about him. He gets the bracha. Oh, you've tricked me before. Tricked you before. You asked me for food. I gave you. You want to give the bracha? He says, yeah. He rejects it. He makes fun of it. I don't want the bracha. I don't want to be a kohen. I don't want to be punished in the Bet HaMikdash. So, very interesting. Because the alternative would be to say that Yaakov knows that he's better than Esau, which again, hopefully was true. I mean, I hope he knew that by doing the right thing and Esau being more devious and deceitful, that he should know that he should merit more than this. But it's still putting yourself, putting on a bit of a show in front of your father and saying, I know you think your brother's better than me, but really it's me, so it's okay. Oh, so it's better that his mother says this. So what he's saying to your father is, I know that you think your prophecy is higher than Ima's, but you're wrong. So I want to go along with this. It's a very, very complicated situation. The more you look into it, the more you appreciate that there's a lot of complexity. It would have been a disaster if Esau got this bracha. History has proven it right. And all I can say is you tip your turban to Rivka, who saw all of it, way in advance. She saw it, she knew it, she convinces Yaakov. Maybe Yaakov knew that he was on a higher level and that he deserved the bracha more, and he just didn't have the guts to do it. He was too humble, he was too resigned to the fact, okay, maybe my brother's going to win. Olam hazeh, what are you going to do? The cheaters always win. So maybe he knew it, and he needed some conviction. He needed some convincing. Maybe he knew that his mother was a prophetess on a higher level than his father, and then nonetheless, this was how it had to happen, and that the deceitful aspect of it was part of it. Maybe there are mefarshim that explain it, that Yitzchak kind of knew anyway, and he played along with it. Like Rivka gave him, she on a silver platter, she's like, here, you can pretend you were tricked. I'll take responsibility for this one. I'm his mother, I know where his clothes are, it's okay. So it could be that she did it in such a way, because he suspects it. He does ask, Hakol kol Yaakov v'adai midei Esau, what, you're a father, you've raised these kids for 67 years, you know what they sound like. The voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands are the hands of Esau.
And also,
now you want to ask him another question?
He was sort of happy that finally Yaakov did something that was deceitful, like Esau would.
That's some of the Farshim say afterwards, post facto. Why does Yitzchak say, after he says, because it's a very hard pasuk, your brother came deceitfully and he took your bracha, like, let him be blessed nonetheless. What do you mean? He just ripped you off. He just cheated you. I want my money back. So Yitzchak's answer to this is, if your brother is this, there are some who understand this way. Your brother is so good at your game. Then we go back to the first pasuk, about why Yitzchak likes Esau and why Rivka likes Yaakov. If your brother is capable of doing these things that you've been pulling off your whole life, forget it. It wasn't even a question. My mistake. I thought you deserved the bracha, but he's better at this than you. Clearly, all bets are on him right now. He's the continuer of the perfection.
Even as being crooked.
Yeah, but he's going to need it, and in fact he does when he goes to Padan Aram and he meets Lavan. These are the skills that maybe he feared his whole life. Yaakov didn't have. Rivka taught them to him or helped bring it out of him. Very interesting. You also find, by the way, that after this happened, Esau lets himself go, as they say,
Doesn't care.
in nutrition, right? He let himself go. He doesn't care anymore. He marries these women that his parents can't stand. He's like, well, the same in Hebrew, im kvar as kvar, like, if already I'm gone, I may as well go with a smile. I may as well just let my hair down. So he takes these wives no one can stand, the daughters of Ishmael. He takes these other two Shiti women. So apparently the jig is up. Like he knows. It's like the truth came out. Yaakov is the one who deserves the bracha. I see that I'm not, my facade was a little bit too transparent, and you saw right through me. So I quit. I want my father to die. I want to marry whatever girls I like, and he does his own thing afterwards. But it's a very difficult situation to explain, save for the prophecy that's in it. That's the conclusion that I always draw. If it weren't for his mother being a prophet, and he himself having prophetic potential or prophetic capability, I can't explain any of it. I don't know what would compel me to listen to the mama or my dad. I don't know what would compel me to, disbelieve my own prophecy or to ignore my own actions and see this. Did he ever talk to his father about Esau? He didn't want to bring it up, but if it weren't for the fact that this is prophetically told to him, and by the way, since when do we hold halakha like prophecy? You ever heard this discussion? The Gemara says that lo b'shamayim hi, like we don't make halachic rulings based on Ruach HaKodesh or based on Malachim. I could have a prophetic revelation that halakha is such and such in a case, and I would still be thrown off a bid din if I try to determine halakha this way without asking the right questions, without cross-examining the witnesses. We don't halakha, rulings of halakha don't come to us from the non-physical world. It's a human process. So I could have had a prophecy that's the story that's in the Gemara, the Reshua and back and forth. And, you can uproot trees and you can make them float in the air, and still halakha is not going to be like you. Tough luck. That's cute, the thing with the tree, but no. Put on your Instagram account. This is just not the place for it. So just because his mother's a prophet means you should do this. On the contrary, the fact that she could be maybe she is. I'm sure she is. Why would that still change the way you behave if it's in any way deceitful or manipulative? Excellent questions. So we go over these parashot every year. Hopefully we understand more. I guess we end where we conclude where we started. All right. I hope things are less clear now than they were when we first got into it. That's the ultimate goal. And appreciate the depth of it. And then we realize that we don't understand all that much. So